2011 this is from. We got Chris and Russo playing in the southern part of the map. L Clan is one of the oldest and most famous clans, one of the most long-running clans. A lot of top players played for them during their period of existence. Don't think they really exist in any capacity anymore. Like, I think the sponsor stopped sponsoring them after a while, but I think a lot of players wore the tag for some time after. At least that's what I think anyway. RVK is an interesting team. Jordan at 23 and Rhea, obviously two key players for Tyrant Legends in a couple of years down the line. I believe the Viper also was an RVK player, so this is a kind of a precursor to Tyrant, if you like. Like around this time or just before, I think Tyrant was kind of all the old legends like Coven and Halen and people like that, and then Doubt joined them. But then a little while after, once all those really old legends stopped playing for Tyrant, then they signed up all these RVK players like Jordan and Viper and Rhea over the course of a year or two. So AOC history lesson over there, because I basically run out my extent of my knowledge about that stuff. A little bit of chat. What are the maps, Ara? I presume you're talking about Call to Arms. Yeah, actually, I'm just going to say that right now, just for people who are watching this on YouTube. Like, we completely ignore the fact that you will see Bact versus Tato up here. That's got nothing to do with this game. That's Call to Arms later. People are asking what the maps are for Call to Arms. There's a mix of like open land maps that are similar to Arabia and some semi-closed ones, and then there's a couple of like fortress style maps that have got palisade walls and double arenas. Although I think that we're less likely to see those today. Perhaps Bact might pick one. I remember in Polaris, the very last series, like Bact was struggling to get a game at all. Like Tato was destroying him with like a 4 or 5 games win streak out of the longer series, and then Bact did manage to finally get a game back towards the end by picking Arena, so maybe Bact will go with walls in that. But anyway, let's have a little bit more of a look at this game. Russo, probably the least active player out of all of these. I guess like Jordan's kind of semi-permanently retired as of about 6 months ago, 9 months ago. But Russo, I think he plays the odd game here and there still. I think Hugh Coyote posts one every now and again in AOC Zone, but he's basically inactive, or 99% inactive, I think. Whereas all of the other players in the game have either continued to be active or have played more recently than he has. So once again, 2011, Russo saying he's -2 sheep here. Trying to see where those are. Probably around the back somewhere, or maybe they got stolen. And I think he's picked up those ones. He was saying he was -2. 5 villagers on wood. Interesting with Mayans. I think, well, just to note, this is an Aztec and Mayan mirror for each team. 2v2. On the left side, we've got Russo in blue playing Mayans and Jordan in green playing Mayans. So it's Mayans war on one side, Aztecs war on the other side. Rhea in the red, and Chris in teal. So yeah, 5 villagers on wood for Russo. Pretty early, interesting build, but we're doing expecting to see drushes from everyone here. Obviously, on the right hand side, with the 2 Aztec players being there, we'd be more likely to see 5 militia drushes coming out for both. It'd be an interesting thing if the flanks were non-mirrored, because then you'd have the Aztec 5-man drush, and then the Mayans have got to choose whether they go 5 to try and keep up with them in that regard, or try and get away with only doing 3 or 4 perhaps. But starting to get to the point in game time where we see the barracks being built for those who are drushing in the next 30 seconds or so, so we'll keep an eye on that, see if anyone elects not to. Of course, other options could be man-at-arms or drush flush type approach, rather than drush and then going up a bit later with more of a faster castle time in mind. Just looking at maps quickly, this left side looks really open across the middle, especially across the front of Jordan's base. Russo, a bit more sheltered, really nice back gold, and as I look at it, everybody's got really nice back golds actually over here. Likewise for Chris, most of the resources in the back, but the vulnerability here for him, he's got this one wood line, and then apart from that, it's a bit of a trek to find another one, so any towers coming up here going to be quite a problem for him. And then checking out Riot lastly. Pretty nice map actually. Easily closable. Gold's in the back again, so everybody's got nice gold really. Nobody having an obvious vulnerability in their map to really exploit, apart from perhaps this wood line for Chris. Russo says he rushed too, so we see barracks here, barracks here, barracks here. Everybody's rushing predictably, so it just remains to keep an eye on how many any of the players choose to go for, and whether they choose to accompany that rush with a faster click up time to follow it up with a flush, or do the more kind of stereotypical rush and wall your map a bit that we tend to see with Mezzo Sibs, certainly in 1v1. Looks like Chris is going to go for ridiculous wall-offs here. This is so much resources, or it would be, but obviously he's got that minor teammate reducing the cost of those palisades. But nonetheless, this is a lot of villager building time, and still a fair chunk of resources. Nobody else going for quite such ambitious wall-offs. Like Jordan would be one of the players who has the hardest time, along with Chris, in actually closing his map. As we see 5 militia come out for Riot here, which is seen immediately by Chris. Presumably he's doing, or has done 5 of his own. Let's find his drush. Staying at home with just 4 for the moment by the looks of it, unless I'm completely missed. Oh, it's one out here. Yeah, I was going to say Jordan probably have the harder time closing his map off, but he's not going for such ambitious walls as Chris. He's just placing his buildings intelligently to try and create a bit of a shield and then just do a little bit of walling. I wouldn't be surprised if this gets walled as well. Whereas Chris is just doing... this is like MBL style walls, MBL 2K16 this is. So Jordan on his way up first, quite a bit faster than any of the other players. I don't see too much happening with the drushes for any of the players at the moment. Jordan trying to find his army on the map, guessing they're all still in their barracks, and judging by the slightly faster click up time, perhaps the fact that he hasn't released them, perhaps he's going men at arms. Villagers on gold as well, yeah, so he could be seeing that, or he could have his eye on saving the cost of those upgrades and just going into archers pretty quickly as well. But with a whole 6 militia coming in for Russo, look at that immediate reaction from him. Sees 6, let's go and create some more, and it's probably looking like he'll be thinking about that men at arms upgrade to help try and fend this off actually. So Jordan close to the feudal age, which will enable him to click that upgrade if he wants. Everybody else starting to click now. Riot's on his way as well, so RVK both a little bit faster here. Yeah, Riot did build that wall to block up that hole. And everybody's going for pretty substantial wall-offs on the right hand side. Jordan went up to 5 militia. Archery range, archery range. This is crazy stuff from Russo. He's now on 1, 2, 3, 4, 8 militia. It's like this eternal drush strategy that I've heard about, where you just you just keep on drushing with more and more militia. I can't see it paying off, to be honest. There's like 3 archers and 4 or 5 man at arms. That can be easily fought against, but obviously if it gets into the right places before you're ready, then it can cause huge amounts of damage. But Jordan did complete his 2 archery ranges, and he's actually not even worried about the militia. He's sending his man at arms forward, or 3 of them at least, together with his eagle, and keep 1 at home for now, although I guess that will make its way over to join. Like, that seems to be a TLX on the map. Hang on, I just need to message PRV Lim. Yes, I am streaming, sir. So nothing much happening in here. Indeed it can't, because Chris has walled everything in. Man-at-arms for Jordan are going to hit the wood line, and they might even get a little bit of a hill bonus, but Russo reacting quickly here, and those villagers should be safe. And the only other real vulnerability for those men-at-arms to hit now probably is if they went all the way around and came in from this side, or they creep around the back and find the gold. Russo's still roaming around with his 8 militia. He's actually seems to have completely avoided Jordan's archers coming past him, and really this investment hasn't paid off for him at all. But at this point, you have to think he's going to click man-at-arms with 8 militia still on the field. But the question is, with Jordan already on 2 archer range production, having some archers on the field, how much are they going to be able to do? They will at least be able to come home and clean up some of this and deal with the man-at-arms from Jordan. But interestingly, Riot, having not been able to get into Chris's base due to all the walls that we saw, has come over to join Russo, and now Jordan is faced with, once this man-at-arms upgrade kicks in for Russo. Oh, sorry, I mean Russo is faced with double man-at-arms play from Jordan and Riot. Temporarily forgot who was on whose team there. So Jordan doing good damage to Russo's men-at-arms there as Riot just sneaks straight by the TC, starting to pick up some kills in that wood line. I've seen 1 villager go down at least, and it's a lot of interruption as well. Also, we saw that a tower was forced on the left-hand side, and Russo's in a bit of a mess right now because he seems to have lost all those 8 militia plus the man that were then turned into men-at-arms, and he hasn't done a lot of damage to what Jordan had. So this is pretty perilous, and Chris had better. Oh no, here's some man-at-arms, but still left. But Chris had better be in a position to do some damage of his own and claw this back. But as I say that, he is in on Riot's wood line. It looks like tree was over chopped there. One villager went down, possibly there, and maybe that's another one. I don't know. I was a little bit late to this actually, but it looks like I've only missed 1 or 2 villager kills. But there's always a hole. Over chopping is always deadly to your base. Those pesky villagers can't wait to put holes in your walls. But with the aid of that tower nearby and some men-at-arms here, I think Russo should be able to avoid more than... Okay, that villager just teleported through those men-at-arms, but Russo's sending all his men-at-arms to go and attack this tower, which means those MTA from Riot are free to get the gold mine. Russo go for the quick wall on the stone quick wall, on the gold, and probably going to be another villager going down, so Russo's really suffering. But he's not terribly far behind on villagers compared to Chris, but that said, that's because Chris is up to the castle age. Likewise, Riot is up to the castle age, and Jordan has about a 4 villager advantage over Russo, so Russo probably 4 vills behind at this point, and suffering a lot. Chris continues to be very, very pesky indeed in Riot's base, picking up kills with man-at-arms, but not inflicting as much damage as Russo has suffered, that's for sure. And Riot's starting to get archers out from 2 ranges to start cleaning this up, but it has done good damage to the economy. I mean, Riot's not actually gathering wood at a lumber camp at the moment, he's just migrating around trying to get stragglers and stuff, so that's pretty messy for him. Jordan parking a couple of archers under this tower and doesn't manage to finish off this tower here. All units over there are dead. But I feel like the damage has been done. Let's take a look at Russo. Okay, Russo can click up if he wants to. And he's got some gold in the bank, but I guess the amount of resources that he's floating, and the fact that he hasn't picked up is a signal of how much pressure he's been under. You know, clicking up with a lot of resources, but he doesn't have army, he's got idle eco, and yet he's... Just shows you what a mess he's in, and the scores indicate that as well. He's fallen well behind. Obviously, he's currently suffering a score penalty from having spent the resources on Castle Age click up. But yeah, certainly very far behind in game state. On this side, both players are in the Castle Age with crossbows. Both Aztec players over here. Let's have a look at what Jordan's been doing, because he hasn't had any pressure at home for a long time. Not unexpected, given that he's under so little pressure that he's gonna save up for castle and get transition into plumed archers, because he doesn't have to continually produce crossbows or anything to defend from Russo, because Russo is reeling at the moment. So may as well take that couple of extra minutes it would take to get castle up and start producing plumes instead. The stronger unit and the better raiding unit. This is a real problem for Riot now, though. He's been trying to get back onto this wood line for such a long time. and it's just not really happening for him. He has managed to wall it up, got some 400 HP on a tile of stone wall here, but that doesn't help when your opponent, Chris, is just sitting in the oasis with a bunch of crossbows. This is why we often see Dry Arabia chosen for tournaments. Just because that kind of generation does really affect the game. If one player has a woodline full of oases and the other doesn't, of course it's up to you as a player to respond to that and to stop the raiding from coming in through the oases, or to apply the pressure to your opponent and make them play their map rather than yours. But it certainly does create a very large asymmetry for players on Standard Arabia as opposed to Dry. But Rhea, I think he's been stubborn up to now, to be honest, like wanting to reclaim this wood line. He's never had any control over it for the last 5 to 10 minutes. And I'm surprised he didn't go up here earlier. I'd also surprised he's... Oh, let's have a look at his scouting. Yeah, he sees that. I'm surprised he doesn't just go up and scout up here more and do some more walls and then properly get on this wood line, because this is awful in terms of efficiency at the moment. And Chris has found a way in. That looks like a destroyed Tyler Palisade there. And Chris is in with more crossbows than Rhea had. So, Rhea, you're in trouble, son, because if those crossbows get up there, that's going to be more villagers going down. For now, a couple of skirmishes with padded archer armour managing to slow Chris down, and Chris is probably wasting a little bit of time in getting up here, although to an extent, like, he probably doesn't necessarily realise everything that all of Riet's economy is up there. But his hesitation there will allow Riet to get a couple more skirms and crossbows out of here and maybe clean this up. I think I only caught part of that conversation there with Rito's questioning Chris, like, what are you doing or something, and Chris says no. So I don't know what that's about. But now you're in trouble, Riet. A lot of vills going down, and Chris with the hill as well, although a couple of skirms and 3 crossbows should be able to whittle down this army. Nice game so far though, because you know, Meso Wars can be pretty closed and walled up sometimes, but pretty much everybody apart from Jordan has suffered. Well, I guess Chris hasn't really been hit either because he's been walled up, but we've seen lots of villagers, lots of raiding, lots of action in the early game, and Russo actually getting into Jordan's base just in time to disrupt him a bit before he gets that castle up. But the castle did go up without more than, I guess, 1 or so villagers going down somewhere. And defensive siege workshop as well as the castle now placed. I think this castle for Jordan, it's in a nice spot protecting his main gold and stone to a degree, especially with the tower providing extra fire from the other side. But I'm going to guess this wasn't the exact placement Jordan had hoped for. He was kind of potentially would have been forced into it a little bit by these crossbows arriving. Chris is saying, I guess Riet has pop 30, because so he's considering that he's done enormous damage to Riet. Russo was offering Chris a sling up there, but Chris says no. I think he's pretty confident that he's so far ahead that he'll be able to go up and deal the damage anyway, and that means that he won't have to then play 2v1 against Jordan as well. Because the thing is, Jordan, although he's a lot later on TCs, he's not going to be terribly far behind Chris. I mean, in Vill count they're almost identical, although Chris will stretch ahead now. He's on 3 TCs compared to Jordan's 2, but you know, Jordan would very much be playing against a pretty strong Jordan and a resurgent Riet in time with that sling. And Russo suffered as well, didn't he, early on, so may not end up being the strongest sling. It's not as if he started to do it. Russo doing a bit of raiding here on Riet, actually. It looks like he got quite a decent number of additional vills, spotting Riet's extra TC and blaring that to Chris. Riet's got army in there to deal with this, but not quite catching up to Russo before he manages to pick off a couple of vills. And that's been a nice raid for Russo, just slowing Riet down even more, meaning if Chris goes up early, or a lot earlier, as you would expect, then he can probably do good damage to Riot, unless he's fully walled, in which case Jordan will probably be the target of that early imp progression. Obviously, at Aztec Wars, as we have on the right hand side, imp time is so crucial. The first person to get those elite eagles with +4 armor can just do ridiculous damage to the opponent with just flooding those in, if the time differential is big. Finally, Chris actually coming under some significant amount of raiding. We did see a few crossbows sneaking in here from Jordan earlier, but not too much. But now he's got a little bit more of a problem, considering this wood line is starting to be the massive vulnerability that I was suggesting it could be earlier on. With just a few plumes behind the wood line, it's possible for Jordan to idle and kill off the villagers of Chris's entire wood economy. So a problem for Chris there. And he needs to deal with it. For now, I don't see too much response. His army is at Riot's base and coming home, but possibly isn't even enough to deal with these plumes anyway. And right now he's taking significant villager losses along with enormous amounts of idle time, responding with a defensive siege workshop, which is what I was looking for before. Would have liked to have seen that reaction a little bit faster, but he may have even been struggling for the wood. In fact, he's got almost no wood left, and he can't gather any, and he's saying, very bad, you better be imping. I highly doubt that. I highly doubt Russo's in the position, although actually, I say that, he's got the resources and he's got a castle up, and 76 vills is actually not in a bad position here. For all that I thought Russo got really messed up, he's not doing terribly. He's actually equal on vill count with Jordan, which surprises me, to say the least. But I guess Jordan focused on that castle probably a bit earlier, whereas for Russo, it may have been that he went TCs and got the castle a little bit later, which could potentially have left him a bit more open to Jordan, but Jordan decided to go to Chris, and we've seen how that's turned out. Russo even sent a mangonel over here to try and clean up some of Jordan's plumes, see how the shots go. Chris is also fun. He got some crossbows back to try and chase away some of those plumes as well, but yeah, some more here. Jordan should be shut down here, but the problem is that Riot is arriving, and Chris sent basically all of his lumberjacks up here, and now Riot sitting on a hill behind, and Chris suffering more and more losses. He's on the way to Imp. Both players on L Clan, Russo and Chris, are getting the infantry armor upgrades to go Eagles. But with the devastation that Chris's economy has suffered on the way to Imp, he may not be able to make so much of that, and what this is doing is giving Riot the chance to get back into the game, because he was so far behind. Chris was saying like, oh, I guess Riot's on 30 pop. Well, guess what, Chris? Riot now has more population than you, and his economy isn't terribly idle like yours is, so Riot is catching up. Let's see how far away he is from Imp. He's literally... No, he didn't click. He clicked wheelbarrow. Okay, so he still needs a lot of food to get to Imp, but I guess the late wheelbarrow timing not helping with that, but it shouldn't take him too much longer. Now he's got that farm count, and the wheelbarrow will kick in. Can't imagine he'll be more than a couple of minutes later. Then Chris, who isn't really able to make too much of his early Imperial Age time just yet by the looks of it. We don't see any Eagles coming ahead. He's still focused on defense, although he does have good resources, lots of golden bank in particular, and we are starting to see those Eagles now. Doing a little bit more food to get elite and to get the blacksmith upgrades in. Continuing to suffer huge losses here as well. Jordan's turned his attention to Russo, but he's not going to be able to raid in through there. And Russo already with Elite and Eldorado kicking in, could do with some more armor to make those Eagles much more tanky against the plumed archer fire. But he'll be on the way to that. And Jordan's a bit slower to Imp, so let's see what Russo can make of it. Can't believe this this ball of crossbows and skirms for Riot is still here. But it looks like they're about to be exterminated. Nice mangonel shot, but the Eagles would happily clear all that up anyway. Elite and plus 2 done for Chris with no attack upgrades. Russo, as we saw, plus 1 elite. Eldorado. Looks like Jordan's gonna buck the trend and go with Plume's approach, getting ballistics, leather archer armor, thumb ring. How many castles has he got? Let's see, he's got 2. So my dashboard tells me, although I'm struggling to fight. There we go, there's the other one. Perilously far forward, perhaps, but he does have a good mass to protect this at the moment. Obviously, elite Eagles kind of impervious to the arrows to a degree until the plumed archer mass really builds up, and then with that kind of hidden attack bonus that they get, and the rapid rate of fire, they do start to cut down the Eagles if they're well positioned and they don't get completely encircled. Looks like Riot though will go with Eagles, as you'd expect him being the Aztecs player. You can tell that by the infantry upgrades and kicking in scale mail and squires, but he's a long way behind the opposing players that are both going Eagles. We know that Elite is done for both players, and Eldorado for Russo. So that's going to be hard to fight against for Riot unless he manages to group up with Jordan, who for the moment seems to be massing at home. Little bit of raiding and probing, but nothing too much. Just waiting for Elite, obviously, bracer, chemistry, all those things you need to try and make those plumed archers effective against Eldorado Elite Eagles. Russo continues with all the upgrades, getting a lot of stuff actually, along with those final economic upgrades. So, quick reminder for those that have tuned in since the start of the game, because I should think the viewer figures increased. Ignore the fact that Back to be Tato is at the top for just now. Shortly we will have those games live, Call to Arms, starting in about 20 minutes. But for now we're just watching this classic rec that took place in 2011. If you're wondering what this is and why there's no Back to versus Tato involved in this particular game. Returning to it though, we see that raiding coming in for Russo, starting to idle some of Jordan's economy, but a little bit too late to kind of inflict enough idle at the right time for Jordan to struggle to get the upgrades in. So he does have Plumed Archer with Bracer Chemistry, the last armor upgrade and everything done. However, Riot is dying. Chris was up to Imperial Age a lot earlier than him, and I said like Riot could have the chance to catch up if Chris was delayed too much by all of this attack on his woodline and his economy as he was on his way, but Riot himself was slow enough that Chris was able to come forward and he managed to find a vulnerability somewhere. It looks like it was probably here. From what I remember, I think there might have been a palisade tile there, I'm not entirely sure, but Chris has found his way in, and Riot's in a lot of trouble now. Villagers going down everywhere. There's no way all of these villas can hide inside TCs and stuff. And although it looks like he might manage to seal that gap up to stem the bleeding and to stem the flow of Eagles into his base, he's still faced with a hugely difficult time cleaning all of this up without suffering a lot of damage. His own Eagles have started to come out. He does have Elite and +4 armor, well, +3, +4 armor done. So actually taking the fight against Chris's ones fairly reasonably there. He only has Forging done in addition to what Riot has done. But still, Riot now down to 70 bills in the Imperial Age, whereas his opponent Chris sitting with quite a few more with the initiative right now. Left hand side, we see both players with 110 vills, but Jordan with a lot of army, and actually, given that he has pretty much, well, approaching double the army of Russo, he may be able to divert some to help Riot survive against Chris. But at the same time, we may see this where Chris comes over here and doubles Jordan together with Russo after inflicting so much damage against Riot. So Jordan will have to be careful about splitting up the army unless he knows for sure where Chris is. For now though, it looks like Chris will go back over to the right and pay Riet a repeat visit. Looks like Riet has secured his perimeter, so Chris shouldn't be getting in now. Russo's starting to add in plumed archers of his own. Elite not done just yet, but it seems that he's going to go into plumed archers and siege rams for the long run. That's generally the combination that you'll see in an expert Mayan war. Eagles were a nice choice to try and take advantage of raiding in the early Imperial Age, but with Jordan getting a really big massive plumed archers and having multiple castles in his base, they start to become less effective at that. And Russo going more towards the 1v1 Mayan composition now. But Chris has found his way in, and if I was forced to take a guess as to how, I reckon Riet opened his gate and stood underneath it, because there's no hole here. Riet has shot himself in the foot here, and we see Chris with an eagle on stand ground underneath the gate, so that increases the likelihood that that gate is what let Chris in through the front door, and Riet once again suffering a lot of economic damage here. Chris actually has Garland Wars done with Blast Furnace kicking in, so Riet is about to be 6 attack less than Chris has, and that means his Eagles will just perish pretty much instantly and fight against Chris's ones. So this is a problem, because Chris not only seems to have more numbers inside Riet's base, he's also got much more powerful troops, and he's going to need help from Jordan. But Jordan, has his hands full with Russo on the left-hand side. He does have a frightening massive plumed archers now, 80, but he'll need most of them on the left-hand side. He'll probably only be able to send 20 or so to help out Riet. So for Riet's sake, he'll have to hope that's enough. And Russo, with the remaining Eagles that he has found another tile hole. Looks like back in 2011, Riet wasn't very good at building a wall and keeping it up. Over and over again in this game, he's been raided through the holes, through the oasis, through his gate, through up here, and he's really suffering. I'm interested to know, because I don't personally know whether Riet was regarded to be at the level he is at today, or kind of reached in the, say, 2013 onwards period that I'm familiar with. Whether he was considered to be the supreme expert that he was back then, or whether he kind of developed in 2012, 13, 14 onwards. I mean, obviously he was a very, very good player at this point, but it's not a name that I've heard too much about from the kind of the period of more than, say, 4 years or so, personally anyway. But I only kind of arrived, sort of started paying attention to all of this in 2013. Left hand side then, Russo is sitting on a very high village account for Mayans in the post-imperial, 130. Will enable him to continue producing a ton of army to fight against Jordan and reinforcing constantly. He's actually the player in the game that's closest to the pop gap, but as Riet is looking dead, 30 population, so good luck to Jordan, because you're about to be in a 2v1 fight and Riet's calling GG. Not surprisingly, that really was a death blow for him. It was looking like that with Jordan's military lead over Russo, he might be able to help out his ally and to carry this a little bit, and I think Jordan would probably have pushed in here without Chris backing up Russo a bit, but for that to happen, it would have required Riet to stabilise a little bit on this side and get into the game and be a match for Chris. But just as he was starting to recover and mass up his own Eagles, he fatally let Chris in through here, and that was the game-ending move, really. The game-ending mistake for Riet. Let's take a quick look at the achievements before we back out for Call to Arms. Due to start in about 10 minutes, so I'll take a little quick break and make sure we're all ready to go with the players and everything. And we'll be back with those games in around 10 minutes. Live games between Bact and Tato. We'll see all 3 games played regardless. so it's not best of 3. Its kill to death ratio here is predictably terrible. Horrible to see in a Mayan war, well, a Meso war in it, where everybody's making more or less the same types of units as well. You did get up onto a very good villager number, but that was just, they were slaughtered. It was just decimation. But nice game though, action from the start really. The huge 8-man militia rush from Russo was funny to see, and I wish it had done more really. He deserved more for the boldness of it. Right, as I said, we'll be back in 10 minutes or so with the live games.